You want to talk about meditation?
Yeah, what is meditation? Why meditate? Why do people meditate? And who medit what's the point, Tom?
That's a good question, isn't it?
Yeah. Because a lot
like,
of people meditate these days. They have the Sam Harris app, you know,
but do they though?
and they meditate and they try to be calm and things like that.
I think it's more of a gesture,
And they have this word called Zen. I'm being very Zen, and it means to be very calm. They probably haven't lived at a Zen monastery like I have, where it's very not calm. It's more like
I'm
the
very
Marines.
cynical about those things.
But what things?
About people saying I'm meditating. I
People
don't think it means I don't think it means
saying they're
anything.
meditating,
I don't
saying they're
think
meditating.
it doesn't
They're
mean
just
anything.
sitting there and they're watching the bullshit that happens in their mind. Is that useful? What's the point? Watching your breath.
It's so connected to lifestyle and prolificity and it's just like it's a cliche.
Yeah. And I don't think that people that meditate are any better than people that don't meditate. I've noticed.
No,
In fact, I think they're probably worse.
I would think so. I would
Yeah.
completely agree, really.
Yeah.
I've lost my hope.
You've lost your hope, but I have to admit that I have this terrible habit. I still do it. I've been doing it for 20 years, but it's more like a bad habit, like cigarettes that I can't live without it, basically. Like I can't live without meditating. My life goes to shit instantly if I don't have a regular meditation practice.
I think we are at the point where we should distinguish different kinds of uh, understanding what meditation is,
Right.
because I think like on one side it's a lifestyle thing, and people use it to relax and to find some harmony in their lives and to you know yeah, stuff like this. And then on the other side, it's a very powerful tool of deconstruction of ego and self, which is very powerful, but I don't think most people would use this in the former way and not in the latter one.
It's not always fun that the latter one, right? It's not. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's a question of motivation. Why do people meditate? So if people meditate to relax because they're on the internet too much and they're super saturated with with whatever anxieties they're having in their daily life, and like I think the reason that meditation is so common today is because of TV. I kind of agree with McLuhan. It's like because of TV, because we're bombarded by stimulus all the time, and so we have to somehow uh, um, empty ourselves of that, or
Right.
or at least develop the psychic defenses. And then so it's like when everybody started going to the gym, maybe what in the 80s or 70s or something. It was because everybody was working in offices and cubicles, and all day long they were sitting and they weren't moving all day long. So they needed to go to the gym. Like
Yeah.
they need to invent gyms, and they need to invent jogging, which didn't really exist, as a sport.
Right.
Um, all of these physical things that people do now is because of the sedentary industrial lifestyle. And similarly, all of the meditation that people do is and why meditation and prayer and contemplation is coming back is because people are looking at the internet all the time, so their minds are fried. So there has to be some mental hygiene somehow, I think.
I love that because I just read that, a concept about our society. We're living in a surveillance capitalism, right? And so the media, the social media and everything is kind of hijacking your mind.
Yeah,
And then
that's
and then it's offering kind of meditation to find some semblance of autonomy and happiness in your life, but I still think that isn't meditation.
yeah, that's Mick meditation. Mac, I guess the surveillance. What's Shoshana Zugroff, who invented that term.
Yeah, yeah,
She talks about how your attention is being hijacked, in every moment by algorithms. So because our attention is hijacked in every moment by algorithms, yes, there's a counter movement to like get back to nature and do meditation and be zen, and it's also part of the same commercial bullshit, right?
Right.
It's the same commercial bullshit.
Right.
But those of us who are kind of snobby would say that's not real meditation, like
No, because
it's not real spirituality. It's not real because when you go to a Zen monastery, they kick your ass, right?
No, because you haven't left the matrix, to say it like this. You're still in the frame and in the structure of surveillance capitalism if you use meditation like this.
Yeah.
Because it's offered by surveillance capitalism.
Yeah. I mean, I just did a meditation session this morning at Parallax Sangha, and we meditated for half an hour, and the guy was like, "Whoa, that's the most I've ever meditated."
Right.
In the 90s, I used to go to these things called Datuns. They were 1 month, and you'd meditate 10 hours a day for 1 month.
Right.
And then in the Zen meditations, you meditate for 18 hours a day. And they were difficult. They were grueling. They were horrible. I mean, just hard work, right? Beautiful at the same time. I don't know if people have the time for that anymore or something. They want to do 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there. And
no, I mean, I think
that requires, I guess, a change of lifestyle, of maybe a real spiritual, maybe really wanting to change the whole psychosomatic structure in a profound way, rather than just wanting to relax or be calm or be zen or whatever.
I mean, I think it's like the Pareto principle. There are like very few people that actually use meditation as it is intended, and the rest of it does like a meditation kind of thing. Like, you know what I'm saying? I think because like the 5% or 2% of people that actually meditate, they don't do it as a reaction to surveillance capitalism, if we stay with that word. They stay because they would want to jump in the abyss, the Nietzschean abyss, and they want to discover something which is way beyond of what society has to offer, because like in every generation, every person or individual is like confronted with society imposing something on them, right? It's like and so I think the real meditation is all about that kind of abyss within yourself, and to try to find something which is at the bottom of that. It has nothing to do with society. That's what I mean.
I'm trying to translate that into terms that I know, and in the Buddhist tradition they call it shunyata. And shunyata, Trungpa called that a blackout. So that sounds a bit like the abyss. This experience of what we call the experience of emptiness.
Right. I mean, it's like I would presume you know not only theoretical but practically that your ego is a construct, right? And so that is part of your lived experience. And I would say, and we had this discussion in the talk last week, and also the self, it's a construct, and to go into the mind-bending abyss, to embody that kind of experience, and to go to the emptiness, that which is beyond ego and self, and that is a horrible process. It's a painful and horrible and process that it hurts a lot to do that, actually. And it's arduous work for decades to get there.
I think so, yeah.
And it's nothing. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Well,
yes and no. It's also very satisfying, to do that. And it's like nourishing. Like you just sit down for an hour, you do nothing. You turn off your, you observe whatever is happening around you, and it's like God, I'm back home for a second. Everything else, there's a lot of, I don't know. I had this sense this morning. It's like why am I not doing this all the time? Why am I doing all these other things?
Right.
Because I felt, here I am, I'm home for a second, just for a very split second, and then my mind started to create this entire cinema again, and started to think about, you know, all the worries I have and anxieties and all, you know, projects and you know, self-doubt and then self-aggrandizement and then, you know, all these kind of things start, you know, piling, and then oh, there we go, I'm home again.
Yeah.
You know, so
It could be interesting to compare our approaches to this, because you're more like from the Buddhist tradition, and like in regard of meditation, I come more from the Raja Yoga approach, right?
mhm.
And so, you
What is
know,
Raja Yoga
and so
exactly?
it's a path of concentration from, you know, it's one of the paths Hinduism has to offer next to
Mhm, mhm.
uh, uh,
Because there's tamas, rajas, and sattvas, right?
no,
And
that's yeah. No, yeah,
the
it's
three
but
gunas.
right, but I don't necessarily think that that means the same thing in that case,
Because
because
rajas would be the heat, right? The intensity.
right. So and so you have, what you do is you take an object, any object that your mind can produce, like a cross or your the tip of your nose or whatever, and you start to focus and concentrate on that thing. And what you try to do is to get rid of, you know, in the first stage, you get rid of all the things that try to impede your attention and try to push you away from that object. And
Mhm,
to have that object in your mind for just 10 minutes, let's say, without that object vanishing, that should, you know, that would be like the first step, right? And so you
mhm.
concentrate. And so of course all you know, all the disturbances come up and try to lure you into thinking, oh, I have to do this, and then you remember this, but you have to kind of try to stay with the object, but there's still noise, internal noise around you. And
Yeah.
then you what you do in Raja Yoga, then you try to extend the time period you're concentrating on that, let's say for an hour, you know, so you can say, okay, you never really lost the mantra, your object of your concentration. You never
Mhm,
lost that. There might be internal dialogue or noise, internal noise still in there, but you never lost that kind of attention. And so it's called attention. It's simple attention, right? But then something strange happens after 60, when you can do that after 60, 90 minutes. And, you know, then some new form of concentration emerges, like concentration as it is, where suddenly you're so focused, all noise vanishes, and your relationship with yourself, with attention, and with the object you're concentrating on is kind of completely, the relationship kind of completely changes. And so it's not you become the object, you become the attention, and you as the one who's meditating is kind of going into the backdrop. And so you're developing a completely new kind of understanding of what concentration is. And so the scriptures, they say that at that kind of point, you learn something about that object, and the
mhm.
object will tell you everything, and you get into a form of dhyana, it's called, like oneness with the object,
Dhyana
right?
means meditation in Sanskrit, and it's
Yeah,
also one-pointedness.
there we go. Right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
where meditation starts, real
yeah,
meditation,
yeah. No,
right?
it's
And
exactly the same thing in the style of meditation that I've done.
right,
You know, I started with doing Zen and shamatha vipassana. But shamatha means calm abiding, and vipassana means one pointing concentration or insight. Um, all of the Buddhist meditations revolve around those two those two concepts. But the particular meditation called deity yoga that you do is that you concentrate on the deity.
right,
And if you do this, if you're very good at this, you concentrate on yourself as the deity and the deity over here,
right,
right? The deity has a certain flavor or expression, and sometimes you work with different deities depending on what you need and what you're given by your
right,
teacher. But the deity. So if you do this well enough, you don't recognize yourself anymore. You're so concentrated that you become the deity.
Right.
And so you become the deity observing the deity.
Yeah.
And then that's the one pointed concentration. So if some people do this so intensely that they walk by a mirror and they don't recognize themselves because
Right.
they've
Well,
changed
that's classic magic.
they're changing their whole psychosomatic structure. That is the magic. Yeah, you change your whole psychosomatic structure to the deity, and deity is perception. So your perception becomes the deity,
Right.
but at the same time, the perception is shunyata, is empty. It's
Yeah.
empty. So it's emptiness, luminosity.
Right.
The view is like in early Buddhist meditation, the view is emptiness. And then in the tantric traditions, the view is emptiness, luminosity, and luminosity is this playful expression of the deity. But
Yeah.
that's still it's the same from the beginning to the end. It's still shamatha vipassana. It's still calm abiding and concentration.
Right.
This sort of masculine penetration and then feminine openness.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like we talked about magic, it's the same thing. You have the path of concentration, the phallic, the mastery of your internal kind of processes. And then you can do like things like invocations or evocations where you do like this deity yoga, where you like kind of concentrate on that and become that what is in that moment.
Yeah. And I think that you don't need to do all that stuff. If your concentration level is very good, then you could just do the empty luminosity meditation. That would be called Dzogchen in the tradition. But the reason you have all these other practices that you do is because they're beautiful, they're fantastic,
Right.
Yeah. or because it's just you're the type of person that you need. There's meditation without very much content, very simple, subtle kind of meditation, and there's meditation with content. And I think because I'm a very stupid meditator, I like meditation to be rich with content rather than, I've done a lot of Zen and just sat there for hours looking at a wall and didn't go very far with that. It's what I was trying to say in the discussion the other night. I was reading this guy, what was his name? I don't know. He was a Jungian. He said he used to follow Krishnamurti around all the time.
Yeah.
And Krishnamurti was always saying, there's only awareness, like in shouting at people and okay, Krishnamurti. But then he became he met Carl Jung and he became a Jungian. He went through all the Jungian, he did all that, the sort of psychotherapy, and came back to spirituality later. When he was very old, he understood what Krishnamurti was talking about.
Yeah.
But when he was really angry at Krishnamurti because he didn't give the guy any path, any way to work through that stuff.
Yeah.
It was just giving somebody the absolute and saying, this is the absolute. Well, what are you going to do with that? You need a path. You need, right. you need to go through different stages and you need instruction and you need to work with different methodologies of meditation. Otherwise, you become this. I mean, there's a lot of people in this neo-Advaitic tradition are just say there's nothing. There's no. But the problem is that they're a bunch of fuck ups, right?
Right.
Anyway, that's my kind of rant about it. So, I think it's the same in all the traditions. There's the same sort of in the Hindu or in the Sufi and the Christian contemplation and it's the same method of concentration and breath and just different flavors of it.
Yeah.
And it leads to the same absolute experience, but they have different ways, kind of flavors and styles of doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's, talking again about our conversation, it's like what I tried to say last time, it's like the moment when you have this concentration, when the meditation starts, and I think that belongs to one of the most intense experiences that I always had in my life when I was staring at the abyss, let's use that metaphor, and then the abyss completely swept me up because I realized through that concentration that there is no ego. It was not just a cognitive realization. It was like, oh no, it was like a full embodied like a full-fledged deconstruction of all that I thought that I am. Because like all what you are is basically just shells of memories and unresolved conflicts and decisions that you made, and all these kinds of things kind of rush up when you try to concentrate. But if you stay your path, and then everything will fall away, and then it's like all the old memories come up, when what your mother said when you were 4 and you had an unresolved conflict or whatever, all that falls away. But apart from that, there's nothing. And that moment when you had the unity with the object or whatever, and then you realized, okay, there's nothing. Yeah. And when the depth, when the deep abyss like just swallows you whole, right? And that is such a shocking, deeply shocking moment, because because we're doing in the world, we're there's an idea of individualism and individualism, but it's like when you try to pay your bills, you do it as an individual, and you live with yourself all your life, right? Yeah. But this profound realization that there is nothing, and that's the one side.
Well, there's provisional truths, like and then there's absolute truths. Yeah.
Yeah, and just let me finish what I want to say, just like one sentence more. So you have that experience, and that was my argument. You have to go back into the world after the meditation. And that realization should enable you to do things differently than before in the world. Yeah. And so what you do in the world is kind of a mirror of how good your meditation was.
Yeah.
That's so you have always both.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Buddhists would call that kind of experience the experience of emptiness. Right. You can have that in meditation, or you can have that when you trip on a banana peel, or it's kind of mysterious, isn't it, when it arises, or when you have that actual kind of experience. Right. I remember one time I was in Montreal and I did LSD when I was like in my 20s, and I did LSD. I don't do drugs anymore, but I had this sensation that everything is nothing. There's nothing. And I was eating a banana and I was going, there's nothing.
Right.
But I was such an idiot that I wanted to tell everybody. And I was going around on my LSD trip saying, there's nothing. I was obviously a very immature, spiritual student, because first of all, I couldn't communicate that. Second of all, I couldn't embody it. Third of all, it was just an experience, right? It wasn't something that I'd integrated into my being.
Right.
So you can have these experiences with LSD or with anything, with a lot of meditation, but they don't mean anything unless you can integrate them into the world, or into the real, let's say. Yeah, and I think that you look at different traditions and they have different ways of describing that. The Christian mystics call it the apophatic state.
Yeah.
The negative theology. It's like, and the Buddhists call it emptiness, and the Zen people just call it zero, nothing, the zero state, or Satori, or
I still remember like one of the first meditations that I had when I was 17 or 18 or something. And that was such a profound moment. So imagine, so I started, I had I chosen asana. And so I had a mantra, like one of those sentences you always repeat. Yeah. And so I was like already sitting doing this mantra. And then I remembered that I think, was it Crowley? I think it was Crowley who said you can intensify the process by imagining a wheel spinning, and the mantra is outside of the wheel, and you can
oh, that's very traditional. Yeah, that's
and
very.
You can throw your thoughts out. So the wheel is kind of, you try to have the wheel spinning, and all the arising thoughts are thrown out of your consciousness. Right. And so I did that. And so I moved the wheel faster and faster and faster, and with the wheel, the mantra. Right.
Yeah.
And then after a while, and it was like what happens when you first do something, then you're good. And then, and then it falls down. Right. But it was like the moment when I had this peak experience where suddenly again the world completely shifted and turned around, and I was thrown into like a absolute witness. I was nothing. There was just the witness, and there was the wheel turning itself, autonomously. And I was not doing it anymore. I was just the witness, kind of observing how the wheel is spinning and spinning and spinning. But it was not my intention anymore. So I was devoid of intention. And I had like this moment where I completely separated from, let's say, my own cognition in a kind of way, because I was just the witness. And so it was a complete stable state. It was completely fixed. And so I stayed there for, I don't know, I had lost track of time. But it was such a profound moment that I was, oh no, I have to do this. And so then I started to look for meditation teachers, like for real ones.
Interesting. Yeah. I started meditation, I guess I started when I was just reading a book, and I read this little Zen book called Zen Mind, Beginner Mind. And then I read the book, and it was the first book I ever read that I memorized the entire book when I read it. It was just going through my mind for weeks. So then I found Zen, and I started practicing Zazen. And then I was in the library at McGill University, and I read this book by Chogyam Trungpa. It was an introduction to the Tibetan Book of the Dead.
Yeah.
And my mind went black. It just completely went black. And I looked around me, and I lost all faith in my professors, in the institution. I said, that's not real. I was like, this is real. I didn't know what it meant. It was kind of odd and strange language. I didn't understand it at all, but I thought there was, okay, this was a glimpse of the real. And then that's when I started looking for teachers in earnest. And I guess the reason you do the mantra very quickly, often you do it in the heart, and you spin around the, an image in the heart, and is you do it very fast because you're trying to sort of destroy your mechanical patterns of thinking. You're trying to just overthrow them, and then you have these moments of gap where you're back, you're here, you're there,
Right. So what's the relation of in Buddhism, in your tradition, between concentration and ecstasy? Because in the Raja Yoga way, it's like the more refined your attention and your concentration gets, the more overwhelming the Kundalini or the ecstasy is kind of washing you over, starting with little bubbles that go up in your body up to
they're called kiryas or something, right?
Yeah, flashes of light and Kundalini pushing up, and you're like, so there's like a very, and there are like even quasi-scientific studies and relationships between stages of concentration and states of ecstasy. And so you have that too?
Well, when you would say that you have the experience of emptiness, and then you move into the tantric path, and the tantric path is about bliss, in a way, about creating bliss.
Is bliss and
not
ecstasy
blood bliss meaning a very subtle kind of bliss. There's all kinds of different practices and different stages. So there's sexual yogas, and there's
That's not what I mean.
where people develop an incredible amount of bliss with each other. There's hatha yogas where you do those kind of you work on the Kundalini and
That's
and
not
all
what
that.
I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I mean in the meditation. So you are on a certain stage of concentration, and accompanying this are some forms of ecstasy that arise, whereas like bliss would be one of the higher stages of ecstasy, I would say, right?
You mean like internal orgasmic states or things like that? What Kundalini? I mean, I know I had one experience I had was when I felt this rushing coming up in my body and things like that.
Right. So you differentiate between concentration, relaxation, and ecstasy. And so relaxation is just ways your body relaxes, and so you have like phenomena like complete stiffness, right? Where
Yeah.
you have the internal sensation that even if you wanted to, you can't leave the meditation because you're so stiff, right? And so
Mhm.
everything, your body feels like a block of granite. But this is not an ecstasy phenomenon. This is more like a relaxation phenomenon. And they also kind of relate to the
Well, you feel
stages.
like a mountain or something. You're just
Yeah,
kind
or
of.
like distorted bodies, parts, or whatever.
Mhm.
This is like also relates to certain states of concentration. But apart from that, again, are these states of ecstasy where you just like you have like this intense flashes of, well, pure ecstasy, right? That
Mhm.
flushing your body and overwhelming your sensory perception.
Yeah, well, I've heard it described as 10,000 suns or something, like
Right, there you go.
I've heard that described. My teacher once said that you just like you could experience so much bliss in the body. It's like 10,000 suns. But he also described how that eventually that becomes painful, and that
Right,
becomes
of course.
another trap, a final trap. It's
Of
almost
course.
a final trap.
Yeah.
Then there's the next stage after that. I
Yeah,
mean,
there are lots of traps, you know?
I haven't had these full on experiences. I've had just little glimpses of it, I would say. So I can't talk about
Right,
it as an expert, but I've certainly heard it described.
right.
Um, and then I also heard something described when you reach the nothingness state. Okay, you do a lot of meditation. You reach something called the nothingness state. This is what
Yeah,
Tractum talks about, and the nothingness state is so profoundly a release, an existential release from all your
right,
anguish that you could just sit there forever and and starve to death and you wouldn't care.
right,
It's such a great and so what happens at that point is the teacher has to pull you out of that and back into the world because you might never leave that state.
right.
Um, uh, that's kind of interesting.
No, but you know, the question again, it's like in Raja Yoga, it's like you can actually measure because it's like the mind is tricky, right? And the
Yep.
mind is like, and so you can actually measure attention through the depth of your relaxation and the depth of your ecstasy because they all go hand in hand in a kind of
Mhm,
way.
mhm, mhm,
And
mhm.
like a concentration dhyana or samadhi phenomenon should be connected to a certain kind of ecstasy. And if it's not, then you have to see, oh, where's the problem? Is there like a blockage, or is there some trauma, or is there the kind of concentration? And so you have to kind of figure out where, but normally in a normal progression of things, all these things work in hand in a kind of way.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah. Well, they're amazing traditions. I think I've discovered that the tantric traditions of India that come from Bengal that are now Hindu, like Raja Yoga or whatever, and Buddhist. At one point, there were kind of like it wasn't so clear that this was Buddhist, this was Hinduism. The early
Yeah, that's true.
Mahasiddhis or the great teachers were a whole mix of things. They were just different schools.
Yeah,
And so I think a lot of the and they're doing these kind of experiments and yogas and stuff. And so while the techniques are a little bit, I mean, I think they're very similar. Many of the techniques. I know that that the Vajrayana techniques are similar, for example, to the ball, and there's the Hindu group in India, and what was used to be called Rasayana. Vajrayana used to be called Rasayana, which means tantric alchemy, and so it's an alchemical path.
oh wow, okay.
So the I think there's the meditation, which is has a certain style to it. Um, in Zen, you don't really concentrate on ecstasies; they happen, but you try to cast them away, right? If you start to go into ecstasies, the Zen master will put your head in a bucket of cold water or something.
Yeah,
You're not supposed to be attached to experiences.
yeah,
Um, but I guess in long meditations they happen. But then there's all the pranayama exercises and all the
yeah,
different yogas and hatha yoga exercises, which are part of the Vajrayana tradition, but also I think I think all of that came out of India, and there's more commonalities between all of these tantric lineages than one
Yeah.
might think.
Yeah, what I loved about, Crowley and Magick is, how he tries to integrate like all these Eastern tradition you just mentioned and the Western tradition, the alchemical and
Yeah.
the poetry. And so he had like this mishmash, but it kind of, and historically speaking, I found it super interesting because, I mean, there was obviously Blavatsky traveling back and forth between the West and the East, but like from a Western perspective, to integrate, or to try to integrate the whole corpus of of the East. I think his best friend was the guy who opened the first Buddhist monastery in the UK. And
That's right.
so,
Yeah, that's
uh,
right. Yeah.
and
I
so,
remember
and
reading
so,
that.
yeah. And
So
so
he
it's,
brought the Vipassana techniques into Western Hermeticism or something like that, right?
yeah,
Or
yeah.
yeah, which is kind of interesting. I wonder if they'll ever succeed because in a way it feels like the lineage, I don't know how strong their lineage is, whatever Crowley created seems to be very fragmented, and I don't know if they have strong teachers and strong lineages. I wonder if
You
that
mean
will.
you mean the Crowley, the Magic, or what you mean?
Well, I don't know. It seems like everything is very fragmented in that world. It seems like they don't have powerful lineages.
Oh, that's not true. That's completely untrue. There
Oh,
there are
well,
lineages, but you don't see them that well. That's, I think we talked about this like 10 episodes ago. I think.
they're just have to be. They're just hidden or something in there. But
Yeah, I
I
think.
mean, in terms of lineages, like really powerful mystical teachers that come out of India, there's not very many of them in Western esotericism. They're all kind of they're magicians, but they're not great masters. That's the sense I get. I've never heard of a really great. I haven't heard of very many great masters
The
within the
problem
Western
is that
esoteric tradition. I think that's because it's too fragmented and they're taking a bit of this and a bit of that and a bit of that. They
I
don't
don't
have
think
a.
so.
All right. Well,
I
if you
think
can find me that tradition and show it to me, I'd be very
no,
interested.
I'm just telling you. It's like I think this has something to do with their program at the outset that it's a Hermetic tradition. That means by definition you don't find them that easy, but they are there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like because how there are authentic teachers and authentic masters,
Mm-hmm,
but
mm-hmm.
it's not that. It's something that I wanted to say last time. It's like you don't talk about it that much. It's in a way it's secret. You should be silent about those things because you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I mean, in some countries there were great mass in like Nepal where you have Drukpa Kunli. He's like a national
Sure.
hero, and he was a
But it's not
great.
in Hermetic tradition.
Definitely is a Hermetic tradition.
Hmm.
Absolutely, the
Is it?
practices are
Okay.
the Vajrayana. It's you don't. These practices are passed from teacher to student. They're not. You can't publish books about them, right?
Right.
They're stuff that they're definitely
I think
Hermetic
it
in
has
that
something to
sense.
do with the Catholic Church, and
Well,
the
maybe
church.
maybe it's just
So
monotheism and the danger.
yeah, no,
You
that
can't do
that
that in a monotheistic culture.
no, that those orders,
Hmm.
in the medieval ages and later, they had to be do this in private and in dark rooms, where nobody found them because the church would hunt them down with the Inquisition or something like this, and so
Hmm.
they had to work in secret. And so I think that created a karma, let's say, and a modus operandi that kind of persists still to today.
Yeah, perhaps. Well, my feeling is about that is that the Western eventually people will there will be great masters of the Western esoteric traditions. I just don't think there's that many right now. I don't think there's many great masters in the Eastern traditions right now either. But
Yeah, that's a good
I
point.
just think I think they're coming, and I think that but they have to. But there's first of all there has to be strong teachers. There has to be a coherent lineage. It can't be just be guys sitting around there, right, lighting black candles and You know what
Oh,
I
no,
mean? Like,
that's bullshit. Let's not go down that road because that's
but there's
just
a lot of that. There's a lot of that
yeah, yeah, sure.
bullshit in Western esotericism that's just
Yes.
sort of nonsense stuff. So you have to have a proper school. Like a Gurdjieff had a proper school, right? Even though, so he had a few powerful students. And I don't know. Do you know any proper schools of Western esotericism that
Yeah,
have
well,
that
there's
kind of
like a
thing?
secret order. It's called the AA, and that's still very
Yeah,
active.
right. Still very active. But what are they
But it's
doing, and where are they, and are they really that part? Are they real enlightened teachers? I don't know. I'm not sure.
no,
Maybe they are.
of course, but
What?
it's not the Black Candle guys.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, no, there's a sophistication, is what you're saying. Sure, sure, sure.
You know,
I think it will.
it's
I
not
think it will come
goth
back.
and not
I,
goth and pentagrams. That's not what it is.
yeah, I know. Yeah, but I think it will come back. And well, I know David James Graham Smith is an amazing Kabbalist. You know, doing incredible work.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's quite a few people out there who are doing incredible work in the Western traditions. I think they need to I think they're in a period of rediscovering themselves. That's my feeling anyway, but I could be
yeah.
wrong. In the 1920s, there seemed to be some very powerful things going on.
In the
Um,
1920s, yes. Mm.
yeah, like really incredible people around. And
Did you know that 1913, I think it was, in a town in Switzerland, there were Freud, Hitler, Stalin, and Trotsky were for a short time living in the same town. It's completely off topic, but I found that super interesting.
Freud, Trotsky, who else?
Stalin and Hitler.
Freud, yes, yes.
That must have been. Was it Zurich?
Is that a
Zurich or Bern?
coincidence? I should tell that to my Freudian friends that who love Freud so much.
There you have the secret masters. No, no, I'm just
Mhm.
joking. I don't know. No, I think you're right. There are not many out there, but I think there's still, I think they're like Aragon at the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring. They're like
Probably.
they're like observing in the shadow and seeing what's going
Mhm.
on. Mm.
But I mean, those kind of masters, people are looking for different philosophies to save them and things like that. But that's the only thing that will save people. Is well, at least that's the only thing that will kind of make the world a livable place. Is if those kind of people come around and create new lineages and texts. And
Yeah.
that's where I placed my poker bet. That's where I put my.
No, I think, and it's a weird thing, and it's a feeling, and I have no data to back that up, but I feel like personal attainment, classically speaking,
Yeah.
illumination
Mm-hmm.
from a single person still saves everybody.
Yes, that's my feeling, and that's why I disagree with this people saying, "Oh, it's going to be the Sangha or it's going to be a tribe," or I think that comes secondary, or that comes at the same time.
Yeah.
But I tend to agree with you there.
And I don't know why. I think it has something to do because I think it's right because in a way, I also feel that consciousness and psyche is not restricted to me, right? And so I think we share some parts of consciousness. I think we don't know what consciousness and awareness and all of this is. I think there is some thing that we all share. And if only one renews it through attainment, then it
Yeah.
trickles down to everybody else. Something like
Then
that.
yeah, it's like a web in the unconscious, or the
Yeah.
or the collective unconscious, as Carl Jung would say it. It's like that becomes illuminated somehow, and one person does it. It's like that's like what they say about forests now. That forests are not just individual trees; they're a single organism.
Yeah.
Um, so it is true that there might be one great tree, but then the whole forest is working.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a mycelium. It's a
A mycelium, that's it.
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And I think I don't know. It's just one person has to like Navy SEALs, to ring the bell, you know, after all the things. So one guy has to rejuvenate everything, and that will save the world. And it's just an old myth, but I still feel that, I mostly feel that this is the truth.
Yes, and we also think it's somebody other than ourselves too, which is a bit of a problem. But somebody's going to come and save
somebody
us.
of us. It's somebody of us.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But I think that's meditation, to answer your question.
Indeed. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about the tantra, you know, the sexy stuff, I mean.
It's so hilarious. Yeah, this is how you trap people into spirituality, right? You say, "Oh, you get lots of good sex," and then they go in and then they come out just totally fucked up, and then they start to become serious about sexuality, spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
They think they could, like Paul had this thing called sexual mastery. I mean, give me a break. Sexual mastery?
Yeah.
Who attains sexual mastery? Nobody. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
This is like, oh, you're going to gain sexual mastery at this tantric weekend. Good luck with that. It's hilarious.
Well, what does it even mean, sexual mastery?
Yeah, I guess that means like you're the it's just like kind of a carrot for the male ego.
Yeah, but what does he mean by that? It's just like jackrabbit fucking, or
I think it means just being a really super guy with an enormous penis, massive penis, and everybody wants to just jump on it.
mm.
I guess that's what it means.
No, I don't know.
It's a boyish sort of fantasy, sexual mastery, isn't it? It's like, I don't know what he means by that. I guess it's marketing, right? Okay, I'm sure that sells. I'm sure people would like to have sexual mastery. In other words, be masters in the bedroom, be very good at sex. So you could become good at sex. That's possible, but
so you're versatile in your techniques, or what?
yes, versatile. I guess it's technique. Yeah, I don't know. In the new tantra, the guy from the new tantra, just he used to get rich women to pay him to.
So
husbands to pay them, and they have sex, and then he fucks them all day long and teaches the husband how to do it properly.
So you mentioned this. As you mentioned this before, in passing, today and last time, I think, sex magic, because there was this time when, before the NASA, you know, it was a JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and the guys who invented the kind of rocket were the disciples of Crowley, right? And
oh wow!
And so they did all these kinds of sex rituals, sex magic, you know, the invocation of the gods, and then they developed this kind of technology that is our core technology. Strangely, you know, so
they built
weird.
Rockets.
Yeah, the guys who invented the rocket systems from the JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the main guy.
They were Crowley students doing sex magic.
The main guy was Crowley's student.
Wow,
and so they did, and so they did all these kind of sex magic rituals. To, what was his name again? You know, let me look that up. Crowley, Aleister Crowley, JPL. So the occult history behind NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory. John Parsons was an American rocket engineer, chemist, and Thelemite occultist, disciple of Aleister Crowley. And so they did all these weird things, and really like sex rituals. So where you do deity yoga, you know, where you, but with, you know, with sex and sex magic. And so they did all these weird things, and
interesting. So we start with meditation in our conversation, then we get to sex again, which is bring it back down to the most important essential matters.
Yeah, of course. Rockets, phallus, meditation, sex. Yeah. Where's the difference anyhow?
Rockets, yeah. So
you didn't know this?
No,
This is
I
a
never heard that before.
tidbit of history. It's super funny, I think.
No, no, I did know that there was a rumor that Crowley invented the V for victory in the
Yeah,
Second World War
yeah.
because to counter the Nazi swastika. I don't know if that's true or not. It's probably
No, I
an
think
urban
it's
myth,
hogwash.
but
No,
it's kind of interesting.
no, but he is always so
Or,
funny with his crazy stories because he told the story in one of his books that he rented a boat because he was a spy for the British Empire, and
yeah,
then he rented a boat and rowed to the Statue of Liberty, and and there he did like some magic rituals to bring the Americans into the war.
yeah,
It's
yeah, 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 yeah,
amazing.
yeah. He just created these incredible stories about a mythology around himself, and no one will ever know what actually happened. Yeah.
But it's so funny. It's I always love we talked so much about Hemingway, and because like Hemingway was also like such a over the top, larger than life figure with his crazy stories. I always like those stories.
Hmm.
Hemingway charging the Nazis in the Black Forest of Germany while already being like, what was he, 50? It is 45, I don't know.
Yeah, he was happily living in Havana, and then
Yeah.
I think he was actually chasing a woman, and that's what got him over there.
Yeah, no,
Mm.
he was offended that he wasn't invited to be a war correspondent in the Normandy, the raid of Normandy, no?
That's right. That's right.
Basically.
Yeah,
And
it
so
was
then
his
he,
wife, or his wife was invited, and he
yeah,
wasn't.
yeah,
So he was jealous and angry, and so he left Yvette, and then he had to join the war effort to
yeah,
best her.
yeah. No, but Crowley has weird stories, and some uh, companions had you always hear the weird stories about Crowley, and you never believe them, but in the end they turned out to be true. And that's
Hmm.
the weird thing with Crowley. So it's like,
Hmm. Yeah,
um,
larger than life person.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. We're living in dark times, man. Where are the larger than life figures now?
Where are they? Yeah, I guess we'll have to be them ourselves, Tom. We'll
Yeah,
have we'll have to become radical, do some radical sex magic.
we
Not with
should.
each other. I'm not suggesting that.
Why not? Let's be transgressive.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, something wild has to happen. That's for
Hmm.
sure.
Hmm.
All right.
I was thinking, are we done? I think we're done, right?
Yeah.